Aaliyah Morgan had always believed that mornings were meant for quiet, for coffee, and for the hum of the city outside her window. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear as she stared at her laptop screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Today, she was determined to finish the poem she'd been circling in her mind for weeks. The coffee shop was unusually crowded, but she found her corner, claiming a seat by the window with a clear view of the bustling street. The clatter of cups and soft murmurs filled the air like a gentle soundtrack to her thoughts. That's when it happened. A brief collision, a knock of a cup, and a warm rush of coffee nearly tipped onto her laptop. "Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry," a calm melodic voice said. Aaliyah looked up to see him, a young man with kind eyes and a hesitant smile. He extended a hand to help steady her chair. "It's okay," she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips despite the surprise. There was something in his presence that immediately made her feel lighter, as if the chaos of the morning had a reason. He introduced himself as Jinwoo Park, and there was a quiet sincerity in the way he spoke, like he genuinely meant every word. They laughed over the awkward moment, and for a few minutes time seemed to slow. The coffee was safe, her laptop untouched, but something more had spilled into that little corner of the cafe: curiosity, connection, and an unspoken spark. As they parted ways, Jinwoo offered a gentle, almost shy hug, brief, warm, but enough to make her heart flutter unexpectedly. Aaliyah watched him leave, a strange mix of excitement and wonder curling in her chest. Something told her this was only the beginning. A week had passed since their accidental meeting, but Aaliyah couldn't shake the memory of Jinwoo's kind eyes or the warmth of that first hug. She found herself smiling at the thought more often than she expected, and even her usual morning rush felt lighter. Today, she decided to take her sketchbook to the park, hoping the fresh air might coax the words and drawings swirling in her mind into something tangible. The park was alive with the soft sounds of children playing, dogs barking in the distance, and the gentle rustle of leaves. Aaliyah spread out her sketchpad on a bench, pencil poised, when a familiar figure appeared across the walkway. Jinwoo was there, camera in hand, capturing the sunlight filtering through the trees. Her heart skipped, and she almost laughed at the coincidence. "Hey," he called softly, noticing her glance. "Mind if I join you?" "Not at all," she replied, scooting her bag to make space. They fell into an easy rhythm, sharing stories about their passions. Jinwoo spoke of photography like it was breathing, while Aaliyah described her love for poetry as if each word carried a piece of her soul. There was a comfort in the way he listened, like he genuinely wanted to understand every detail of her world. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the park, Aaliyah admitted a small insecurity about her sketches. Without a word, Jinwoo reached out, offering a hug, longer this time, grounding her, steadying the fluttering in her chest. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to make her feel seen, safe, and strangely understood. When they finally parted, the air between them hummed with the promise of more moments like this, quiet yet electric. Some meetings weren't accidents at all, they were invitations, and somehow she knew she'd accept. The cafe smelled of warm pastries and freshly ground coffee beans, a comforting aroma that seemed to invite honesty. Aaliyah found herself sliding into a corner booth, sketchbook tucked under her arm, and spotted Jinwoo already seated, a soft smile waiting for her. He waved, and the little spark she'd felt in the park last week ignited again. "Hey, I saved you a seat," he said, sliding a cup of steaming coffee toward her. "Thanks," she replied, brushing a nervous strand of hair behind her ear. Something about his calm presence made her chest feel lighter, even as her mind buzzed with self-consciousness. They talked at first about the mundane, classes, the city, favorite cafes, but soon the conversation drifted as if drawn by some invisible thread. Jinwoo asked about her childhood, her family, the moments that shaped her, and she found herself answering more openly than she expected. She laughed at small embarrassing stories, watched as his eyes crinkled with genuine amusement, and realized how rare it was to feel this comfortable around someone so quickly. When Jinwoo shared his own stories, Aaliyah noticed the quiet vulnerability beneath his confident words. She reached across the table for a fleeting touch on his hand, and he smiled softly, squeezing hers in response, a silent acknowledgement of connection. As the evening grew darker and the cafe lights cast a golden glow around them, they stood to leave. Jinwoo leaned in, giving her a warm, lingering hug, one that felt like a promise rather than just a goodbye. Aaliyah felt her pulse quicken, a strange mix of excitement and serenity washing over her. Walking home, she couldn't stop replaying the day. The world had suddenly expanded, made brighter by someone who listened, who cared. And for the first time in a long while, she wondered if this was what fate felt like. The city looked different from above, as if every street and rooftop had a story to tell. Jinwoo led Aaliyah to a small rooftop garden tucked between two tall buildings, the air warm with the remnants of the day's sun. She stepped out onto the terrace, surprised by the quiet beauty. Potted plants swayed gently, and strings of lights glimmered like tiny stars. "This is amazing," she whispered, eyes wide, taking it all in. Jinwoo smiled softly, watching her take in every detail. "I thought you might like it," he said. They found a bench nestled among the flowers, and for a long while, they simply watched the city. The gentle hum of distant traffic faded into the background, leaving only the sound of their voices when they finally spoke. Jinwoo began to share something deeply personal, an old dream he had of traveling the world, capturing moments others might overlook. His words carried a quiet honesty that made Aaliyah feel like she was being led into a secret part of him. When it was her turn, Aaliyah hesitated. Sharing her own hidden fears and insecurities wasn't easy, but something about this place, about Jinwoo's steady gaze, made her courage blossom. She told him about her struggles with self-doubt in her art, the moments when she felt invisible even to herself. Without a word, Jinwoo reached out and pulled her into a long, comforting hug. She rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the kind of warmth that settled deep into your chest. It was gentle, safe, and unspoken, a way of saying, "I see you and you're not alone." When they finally pulled apart, the city lights reflected in their eyes, Aaliyah realized that some connections weren't just fleeting. Some were meant to linger, to grow, and to change the way you saw the world. Tonight, theirs had begun to do just that. The sky had been deceptively calm all morning, but by afternoon, clouds rolled in, heavy and gray. Aaliyah hurried across the city streets, sketchbook clutched under her arm, only to feel the first drops of rain splatter her hair. She ducked under a cafe awning, laughing at the sudden downpour. Moments later, a familiar voice called out, "Aaliyah." Jinwoo jogged toward her, umbrella clutched in one hand, camera swinging from the other. "Caught you just in time." She grinned, shaking off the rain. "Seems like the weather has a sense of timing." They dashed together into a nearby bookstore, dripping and laughing, and found refuge among the shelves. The scent of old paper and coffee made the space feel like a secret haven. Jinwoo watched her cheeks flush with laughter as she picked up a random book, pretending to read dramatically. Aaliyah noticed how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the same way they did when he laughed softly in the park. For a while, they wandered the aisles, sharing stories and discovering favorite passages in books. Every so often, their hands brushed, and each accidental touch sent a small thrill through her. When they reached the back of the store, a quiet corner offered a little privacy. Aaliyah shivered, not from the cold, but from the intensity of being near him. Without hesitation, Jinwoo wrapped her in a warm hug. It was gentle but steady, the kind of embrace that made the chaos of the rain fade into nothing. Aaliyah rested her head against his chest, feeling the comfort and safety in the simple closeness. When they finally parted, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. They stepped outside together, shoulders brushing, hearts light, knowing that sometimes life's little storms could lead to the warmest moments. The city streets sparkled with lanterns, their warm glow reflecting off puddles from last night's rain. Aaliyah stepped out of the taxi, eyes wide with wonder. Jinwoo had promised her a surprise, but she hadn't imagined anything like this. A vibrant nighttime festival, alive with music, laughter, and the scent of sweet treats. "Welcome," Jinwoo said, smiling as he offered her his arm. "I thought you'd like some adventure tonight." Aaliyah linked her arm with his, feeling the warmth of his hand against hers. They wandered together through the crowds, stopping to play small games, sample food, and watch performers twirl under the lantern light. Every so often, they laughed until their sides ached, stealing glances at one another that made her stomach flutter. At one point, they found a quieter street lined with paper lanterns. Jinwoo reached for her hand, this time intentionally, intertwining his fingers with hers. Aaliyah felt a gentle thrill at the simple contact, an unspoken acknowledgement of their growing closeness. They paused by a small fountain, the water reflecting the lights above. Jinwoo turned to her, a shy smile on his face. "I'm really glad you're here," he whispered. Without another word, he wrapped her in a warm, comforting hug. She rested her head against his shoulder, heart swelling at the quiet intimacy. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't showy, but it felt like a promise, a small marker of how far they had come in such a short time. As they walked back through the lantern-lit streets, side by side, Aaliyah realized that some nights were meant to be remembered, not for what was said, but for the feeling of being seen, cared for, and entirely at ease in someone else's presence. Tonight, with Jinwoo, she felt exactly that. The art gallery buzzed with anticipation, the walls lined with canvases, sketches, and colors that told pieces of Aaliyah's soul. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a painting, feeling suddenly exposed in a room full of strangers. Jinwoo noticed immediately. "You're going to be amazing," he said softly, offering her a reassuring smile. "You don't have to do this alone." Aaliyah exhaled, trying to steady herself. The room felt overwhelming, the quiet murmurs of the crowd, the flashing cameras, the weight of expectations. But there was a calmness in Jinwoo's presence that cut through her nerves. He stayed near, never intrusive, just grounding her with the steady warmth of his gaze. As the evening unfolded, guests admired her work, asking questions, complimenting her talent. And though pride swelled in her chest, so did a little fear of inadequacy. Sensing it, Jinwoo leaned in slightly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You've earned every bit of this," he whispered. "I've seen how much heart you put into your work." Later, when the crowd thinned, he pulled her into a hug. It was long, warm, and unspoken, an embrace that said, "I believe in you always." Aaliyah rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the tension melt away. She realized that moments like these, simple yet profound, were what made life feel full. Walking out of the gallery together under the soft glow of streetlights, Aaliyah glanced at him and smiled. Jinwoo had always been quiet in his support, but it was unwavering, constant. Tonight, she understood that love wasn't only in grand gestures. It could be in steadfast presence, in gentle hugs, and in knowing someone saw your heart and never let go. The park was quiet that night, the city's hum softened by distance and darkness. Aaliyah and Jinwoo walked along the tree-lined path, shoulders brushing occasionally, the kind of closeness that spoke louder than words. Lanterns hung faintly in the distance, casting a soft glow that made everything feel suspended in time. "I've been meaning to tell you something," Jinwoo said, his voice low, hesitant. Aaliyah turned to look at him, curious, sensing the seriousness beneath his calm tone. I like being with you," he continued, eyes searching hers. "More than just as a friend. I felt this for a while, but I didn't want to rush or scare you away." Aaliyah's heart skipped. She felt the same, yet hearing it aloud made it both thrilling and terrifying. She took a breath, letting the words find her. "I like being with you too," she admitted softly. "I've been afraid to say it, but I feel it too." For a moment, silence wrapped around them, warm and tender. Then, without another word, Jinwoo stepped closer, enveloping her in a hug that was both reassuring and electric. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The embrace was slow, intentional, a way of communicating what words couldn't fully capture. When they finally pulled apart, neither wanted to let go completely. Laughter mingled with relief as Aaliyah realized how rare it was to find someone who understood the rhythm of your heart without asking. The park felt different now, brighter yet softer, alive with promise. Tonight, they had crossed the threshold, not just as friends, but as two people who trusted each other enough to open their hearts completely. And for the first time, love didn't feel uncertain. It felt inevitable. The morning sunlight filtered softly through Jinwoo's apartment windows, casting golden patterns across the floor. Aaliyah stretched and yawned, noticing Jinwoo already awake, carefully setting up coffee and toast on the small kitchen counter. The sight made her smile. Simple routines, shared moments felt suddenly so precious. "Morning," he said quietly, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "Sleep well." "Better than ever," she replied, leaning over to press a brief hug against him. It was casual, comforting, and warm, an acknowledgement of how much she had come to rely on his presence. They spent the morning planning small adventures and creative projects together, talking about places they wanted to visit, exhibitions they wanted to attend, and even collaborative art ideas. Each conversation flowed easily, laughter punctuating their plans, small touches and hand brushes lingering longer than necessary. At one point, Jinwoo paused, looking at her with a gentle intensity. "I like imagining our future together," he said. "Not just big plans, but the everyday things. The mornings like this, the quiet dinners, the little moments." Aaliyah felt her heart swell. She had spent years chasing dreams alone, but now there was someone beside her who genuinely wanted to be part of every step. She reached out, letting her hands rest briefly on his shoulders in a hug that spoke volumes, gratitude, love, and comfort all at once. As the day stretched lazily ahead, they moved between sketching, sipping coffee, and exchanging soft smiles, feeling the quiet joy of normalcy together. For the first time, Aaliyah realized that love didn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes it was built in the small, steady moments of life, in the simple hugs, shared laughter, and knowing someone would always be there. By evening, it felt certain. Their hearts weren't just intertwined, they were ready to grow together day by day. The rooftop garden looked even more magical now, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. Aaliyah stepped out onto the terrace, her heart fluttering with anticipation. Jinwoo was already there, holding something behind his back, a shy smile tugging at his lips. "Close your eyes," he said softly. Aaliyah obeyed, feeling a thrill of curiosity. When she opened them again, Jinwoo held out a handmade scrapbook, its cover decorated with little sketches, photographs, and snippets of their favorite memories. Her breath caught. Every page was a story: the park, the rain, the cafe, the festival, all the small moments they had shared, captured lovingly. "I made this for you," Jinwoo whispered. "To remind you of us, of everything we've shared, and everything that's still ahead." Tears pricked her eyes as she ran her fingers over the pages, memories flooding back. She looked up at him, smiling through the warmth in her chest. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice soft. Without hesitation, Jinwoo pulled her into a long, enveloping hug. It was the kind of hug that carried everything: trust, love, gratitude, and the unspoken promise of forever. Aaliyah rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat echo her own. In that embrace, the world beyond the rooftop faded away, leaving only the certainty that they had found home in each other. When they finally pulled apart, their hands found each other's, fingers interlacing naturally, like they had always belonged that way. The city lights flickered below them, but all Aaliyah could see was Jinwoo's smile, warm and unwavering. And as they stood together, the sun dipping below the horizon, it was clear. Their story was only beginning, and this time it was for forever.